It's different when you are part of the group
Oh
that
my
has been
God.
attacked, hurt, demeaned, etc. And then if you're outside of that group and you're having commentary about it, it causes feelings. And what do you say to people who feel that in some occasions you're punching down?
Oh no, guys! It causes feelings! How are these people real? One final story for today. We're going to check in with Dave Chappelle, the controversial comedian who I have always found hilarious and I have defended over the years. Though I certainly disagree with him on a fair number of things, I do find his commentary and comedy about like gender issues and the LGBT clown car and all of that. I was a big fan. And I was against the cancel culture insanity that went after him for it, which we're going to go through. I think people forget how mad that was and how extreme it was. But he's back in the news because he just did an interview with NPR after I believe the context of the interview is that he just donated $15 million to help a local NPR studio like get a new set or something. But for whatever reason, yeah, he did this interview with NPR, and this reporter essentially like scolds him for joking about trans people. She even pulls the canard, the "you're punching down" canard. And I'm like, NPR really is still out here in 2020 in their heads. Like they really still do think we're tolerating that insane BS. Well, we're not. And we're going to roast you down for saying this, for saying this stupid stuff and trying to pull your big one on NPR against Dave Chappelle. Here's the headline from the interview. Dave Chappelle wants his audience to remember how good it feels to be together in turbulent times. It started out nice, the interview, but then it got scoldy and Karen-y real fast. Let's take a look at the clip here.
But what about people who feel like you're punching down? Like you are not a trans person. And there are people who feel like it's different when you are part of the group that has been attacked, hurt, demeaned, etc. And then if you're outside of that group and you're having commentary about it, it causes feelings. And what do you say to people who feel that in some occasions you're punching down?
Oh no, guys! It causes feelings! How are these people real? How is this serious? How are they still doing this? No one cares if the joke hurts your feelings. Nobody tied you to a chair and turned on Dave Chappelle's Netflix special where he jokes about trans people and put the toothpicks in your eyes so you have to watch it. Like, change the channel, cope and seethe. And I'm sorry, you're allowed to joke about important and highly relevant cultural phenomenon and changes and things that are being asserted and spread throughout society. And the fact that those people are perceived as less powerful doesn't mean that you somehow aren't allowed to crack jokes about them. And we actually don't apply that in any other context to other groups of people, except when it's a woke thing. But by the way, like, oh, well, you can't joke about something. It's just essentially like this is in effect an ideological war on humor of any kind, because if the suggestion is you can only joke about the things you personally are, well then, I mean, really your ability as a comedian is vastly limited, and just the total of human potential is limited for art and comedy. I mean, think of how many amazing books and films and songs and comedies, specials and everything have been about a topic that the author is not personally an expert in or has lived experience in. No one cares. Y'all sound deranged. And I actually can believe it. I keep saying I can't believe it. It's actually like the most believable thing ever because it is NPR. And this is why we were right to defund them. But it's still wild to me that they're still peddling any of this. Like they've really learned nothing. It's wild. And especially because if you go back to the Chappelle special where he joked about trans people and some of his jokes were absolutely hilarious. I'm not going to repeat them because some of them are rather vulgar. Like when he referenced a joke about impossible burgers, but he wasn't talking about burgers. If you know, you know. Well, anyway, if you go back and actually listen to the special in its entirety, which I did at the time, it was actually a nice message about a friend of his who was transgender. It wasn't a hateful net message at all. He just made some jokes and pointed out some offensive truths. And the response that he got at the time was insane. I think people forget how insane it was. I'm just going to read a couple headlines here. BBC 2022, July. Dave Chappelle show canceled over transgender jokes controversy. Comedian Dave Chappelle has had a live show canceled at the last minute due to controversy over some of his jokes. The First Avenue venue in Minnesota apologized for booking him and said the show would move to another theater. NPR headline, May of 2022, Dave Chappelle physically attacked in the middle of his performance in LA. Also, another headline, CBS News, 2021, Netflix employees stage walkout over Dave Chappelle special. They literally, also the activist groups, GLAAD and all these like LGBT and progressive causes tried to deplatform this and demand that Netflix take down his special. They said it would like incite violence, that he joked about people. Oh my God. It puts people's lives in danger. No, y'all actually are just the ones putting your own community in danger by sabotaging your public perception and image and cause by being the most annoying, obnoxious people on the planet Earth. And Dave Chappelle did nothing wrong. But people forget, I even forget how crazy the cancel culture stuff was and how crazy peak woke was. And so I think it's like worth revisiting that. He literally had venues cancel on him last minute and apologize for booking him. The company that published his special had a staff revolt from people trying to censor their own platform to keep his edgy jokes off of it. Like, he got physically attacked by somebody who I believe it was a trans-related protest. Anyway, either way, it's just crazy town. And yet you have this NPR-looking reporter unironically saying, but should you really be punching down? In the big 2026, we're still doing this. Ay, Dios mío. Let's keep watching this clip.
Well,
oh my God, love the eye roll.
Conversation that you know.
You're bored by, sick of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sick of it. I don't want to be dismissive to that sentiment, but I don't know. That's a tough one for me because so much of that was a media phenomenon. What was happening in actual life versus how the media was reporting on my show. And I feel like the way they reported on that show was rage baiting to some degree. And there's so many different branches to talk about it. But I would say that, you know, not everything is for everybody. I don't tell country artists what to sing about if I'm not going to go see a country show. You know, if they bought tickets ever, maybe I'd listen. I don't know. They're just never there. I don't even know who's telling them I say these things.
Do you feel like your jokes are misrepresented, or you think they're misrepresented for a purpose, which is to?
It's almost some reporting was as if they almost reported on it as if I was doing something other than a comedy show. You know.
This is a really good and important point, actually. A lot of times they would take a sentence out of his comedy special and just report it the way that you would report like a statement by a politician. Just like, oh, this is an assertion of what you believe, right? Or like, this is your serious, not at all exaggerated or hyperbolic or intentionally absurd statement made about a public issue of contention. That's not what comedy is. Obviously, you're saying crazy stuff, or you're spinning things up, or you're saying things in a particular way, and there's an intonation and a context that people understand that is just totally lost when breathless reporters repeat it as if it's just like an assertion you made in an op-ed in the New York Times or something, when in fact it was a joke said in jest in a comedy special. And they really did wage, during that kind of peak era, like wage a war on context. There were authors who were accused of racism because of quotes they wrote in books that were supposed to be racist characters. And those words were treated as if that was their words. And none of it makes any sense. And all of it is like anathema to any basic sense of creative freedom that allows us to have nice things. And so to the extent that that cultural force has been, I don't want to say defeated, it is definitely still there, but has been pushed back or weakened, that is an amazing thing, not something to bemoan on NPR. Let's watch the rest of this.
I could go on and on about this, but I got to be
interesting.
careful.
So in a way, like you're saying, look, I'm a comedian. Everybody knows that I'm a comedian. So if you don't like my humor, don't buy a ticket.
Crazy thought.
Reading a joke is a lot different than sitting in a room and hearing it. And part of the sitting in the room part of one of the reasons comedy works is because everyone that bought a ticket, clearly they want it to work. They want to have a good time. They want to have fun. But if you're a person that is very angry or passionate about something, and you're afraid that you're going to be misrepresented or misconstrued, and you feel like you have to police comedy to get your point across, you should assess your point.
He ate with that one, guys. I agree with this. If you have such a weak ideological or political perspective that it cannot withstand any mockery, and you feel the need to try to brutally squash such mockery, then I agree. That would suggest actually that you're knowingly building your movement or your cause on a house of cards, and you know that it is flimsy and weak. Because actually, like, if you're actually confident in yourself and your own beliefs, you can laugh at some self-deprecating humor, or you can admit some of your shortcomings or some of the things that are a bit much about yourself. And I always have exponentially more respect for people who can take that route, who want to have a roast of themselves and don't get triggered or offended or say, that's incredibly offensive. We need to have a walkout. Like, imagine the audacity to actually be like a young 20-something Gen Zer, be like, guys, I know you work at Netflix and we have these like nice corporate jobs and people work in literal coal mines every day, but it's so offensive and terrible that somebody made jokes in a comedy special that's one of thousands of things published every month on our platform that no one has to actually watch unless they want to. It's so incredibly triggering and offensive. We should all walk out and protest our boss and show them that we won't tolerate the existence of people making jokes about things we believe in. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's an incredibly thin-skinned and childish, not a word, oh my gosh, childlike approach to the world. All right, guys, clearly I've been yapping for too long, and the brain cells have been fried today by the amount of Delulu we've had to sort through. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe. If you aren't yet, hit the like button, and do consider becoming a channel member to support my work. And with that, guys, that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk again real soon.